Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim for the Real Sports Talk. You can hit me up on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST. You can also like the Real Sports Talk on Facebook. Go do both of those. This is our final TRST regular season game of the year. Then we are going to shift our focus towards covering the playoffs. So there's not going to be one next week. I don't even know, honestly, I don't know the exact date that the season ends. Bottom line, though, this was a tremendous game. The Thunder controlled it for a lot of it. The Lakers got back in late with some clutch shooting from Kobe Bryant. And it took 2 overtimes, but the Lakers ultimately win 114-106. A lot went down in this game. I'm going to talk about Kobe's clutch shooting, Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, why they struggled so much today. Do the Lakers have enough depth? And also the Ron Artest, Metta World Peace, whatever you want to call him, his elbow to James Harden's head. So there is a lot to get to in this video. We will begin, though, by going over some of the stats from today's game. On the Oklahoma City Thunder side, Kevin Durant, 11 of 34. Absolutely a pitiful game shooting. Look, this is one of those games. It's like that game last year against the Pacers where D. Rose had 40 points, but he was like 0 of 10 from three-point land in, I think it was their first playoff game. It's like, okay, you scored a lot of points and that certainly helps your team, but the bottom line is I have a tough time saying it's a very good offensive game when you shoot 11 of 34. That is like 30% shooting. It's 32, 31, somewhere right in that area. I'm not very good at math if you can't tell. But Serge Ibaka had a huge game. He really picked up Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. 9 of 16 today, 18 points, 14 rebounds. 12 of those came on the defensive side, 7 blocks, and only had 2 turnovers. He had a tremendous game today, and I think that people really massively underrate how good Serge Ibaka is. Defensively, he should be right in the top 5 for Defensive Player of the Year. I believe he leads the NBA in blocks. He's right there with for Defensive Player of the Year. Guys like Dwight Howard, who's out, LeBron James, Tyson Chandler, that whole crew for Defensive Player of the Year. Kendrick Perkins in 43 minutes only had 4 points, but he did have 10 rebounds. And they mentioned it on the broadcast. Van Gundy talked about some of the screens that he was setting were absolutely just opening up lanes. And Kendrick Perkins is not going to score a ton, but he is still a very valuable piece. Thabo Sefolosha was 1 of 4 shooting today with only 6 points, and then 14 points from Russell Westbrook. But Russell Westbrook was 3 of 22 shooting. It's really incredible that they even came, that they were leading most of this game, and that they got this game to overtime when both of these guys had such awful shooting days. You talk about how bad of a day Kevin Durant had, but he still scored 35 with that bad of a day. Russell Westbrook, he had just as bad a day, probably worse overall. Derek Fisher for the Thunder got 5 points and then 14 points for James Harden off the bench, but obviously he only saw 13 minutes because of a hit to his head. I'll get to that in a second. On the Lakers side, Metta World Peace in only 18 minutes because he got ejected, had 12 points, 5 rebounds, obviously that huge dunk. Pau Gasol was 7 of 18 shooting today, 14 rebounds, 20 points, 9 assists. His stat line looks a lot better than he played in my mind. I think that there's a lot of times where he could just post up and Kobe Bryant wouldn't have to take some of those shots, but ultimately they're not able to do it. Andrew Bynum only played 3 quarters today, 29 points, 5 of 15 shooting, 10 points, or 29 minutes I should say. 5 of 15 shooting, 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 assist. Kobe Bryant struggled through the first 3.5 quarters, but then came on strong. 9 of 26 overall shooting, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. I'll cover him more in a moment. And Ramon Sessions only saw 30 minutes today, 8 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. But Steve Blake actually got a majority of the minutes at point guard, and Jordan Hill got a majority of the minutes at center. Steve Blake had 13 points, played pretty well, 5 rebounds and 3 assists. Jordan Hill at center had 15 rebounds, 14 points, and 3 blocks. We'll start with the Metta World Peace hit on James Harden. So this is exactly how it goes down. He dunks, he comes down, and he kind of puts his elbow out to kind of celebrate. The first part where he hit Russell Westbrook in the head, I kind of thought was incidental. But then he gets to the second part where he's just like, he just cleared him out with his elbow. You could see his head move in all likelihood, James Harden probably has a concussion at this point. I know that he flops a lot, but that certainly was not flopping. Artest deserved to be ejected, and he probably will be suspended. I wouldn't be surprised if it was for the remainder of the regular season. But in reality, that does not mean a ton to the Lakers because all they're doing is trying to fight for that second spot. And there's not going to be a ton of a difference between that second and third spot. Ron Artest, I still call him that. I'm never going to call him Metta World Peace. He just does some of these stupid things. I don't think he's even a dumb guy. He actually seems like a nice guy. But we all remember the brawl at Auburn Hills and some of the other dumb stuff that he's done. And it just makes you question because he seems to have these moments where he's this likable character. And then he'll do one of these really stupid things. I remember last year in the playoffs he did something. I can't even remember what it was. But it's like, just think for a second. Why would you do that to someone? Just absolutely take your elbow and clear him in the face. It took at least 10 minutes to get him off the court, and hopefully Harden is okay because he has run away with the 6th Man of the Year award and had a very good season. Kobe Bryant today struggled through the first 3.5 or so quarters, as I mentioned, but he got them back in the game, and a lot of people were asking me on Twitter, look, he's taking too many shots. I know that one right at the end of the game where he had a chance to win it, where he like dribbled back and forth and finally took the shot. That's one of those ones where you look at Kobe Bryant and you say, it's so obvious that he's going to take the shot. Why can't he pass? But then you look at who else was out on the court. Jordan Hill, Pau Gasol, Steve Blake. Come on, Devin Ebanks. Who else is going to shoot on that team? There's a lot of cases that I've seen where they're in games late where you can get the ball down to Andrew Bynum, and in that case I think that forcing a shot does not make a ton of sense. But in this case, I don't think that I had a ton of an issue with him forcing that shot late because he was shooting hot. He had made a few clutch shots, and that's one of the things about Kobe Bryant is that it does not matter how bad of a game he has late in that game. A majority of it, he will come, or a majority of the games, he will come back and have a great end of that fourth quarter. And if the game's close, it's likely that the Lakers are going to win. I think it is important, as always, to keep in perspective the type of game he had. He shot 9 of 26. Not necessarily a great game, but the bottom line is when his team needed him to go score some points, he did the job. And it's tough to argue with what Kobe Bryant did today. Had an absolutely tremendous end of the fourth quarter, and those 2 overtimes really did a bulk of the Lakers scoring. And you know, I know that I've kind of fought the he's overrated battle, and I'm done fighting that because I realize that, and I knew this, that we are watching one of the top 15 players. You can rank him higher if you want, that's where I rank him, of all time. And to get in an argument with people who think that he's better than Michael Jordan, it's kind of just wasting my breath because I know how good Kobe Bryant is, and by doing that, I enjoy watching him play less, and I don't want to do that, so I'm done fighting the is he better than Jordan argument because anyone who says that obviously has no grasp on the history of the game. In overtime, there was some questionable calls. Obviously, the one was reversed where it went off Ebanks' hand, but Russell Westbrook, and the real controversy on this play actually was who it went off of. But Russell Westbrook went up, and Pau Gasol absolutely mugged him, and they didn't call anything. This was when the Thunder were still within 2 points, and you know, everyone knows that when you're in the Staples Center in a big game, a prime time Sunday game of the week, that the Lakers have been given calls quite often. I mean, there's even been series in the playoffs, Sacramento 2002, where that has happened. And, I mean, I don't blame the Lakers, obviously, but I can't stand to see refs decide a game. I don't think that they did that today, but I think that if this game was within 2 points, then I would have probably felt differently because there were some calls there that they missed, and Scott Brooks was calling for that call to be made, and he was absolutely right about it. Kobe Bryant absolutely tremendous in that overtime, as I mentioned, and then Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, they did make a few nice shots, and that is important on that team because while you do have a lot of good other players, you don't have a ton of other scorers on that team. Derek Fisher might be able to give you a big shot here and there. Essentially, Derek Fisher, in my mind, is the most overrated player to ever play in the NBA, but Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook did not have a ton of other options to give the ball to. So while they were having tough games, I like to see that they still shoot. It shows how good of players they are. Now, there are other circumstances where other players are in different circumstances, and if you have a better player to give the ball to when you're not having a good game or whatever the case may be, then you go ahead and you take that opportunity. But in this case, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook did not have really another option. And if this happens in a playoff game, the chances of them winning, let alone getting into double overtime, winning most of this game is not very likely. So this was kind of a fluke that they were even able to play in this game. Playoff hopes for both teams. I look at the Thunder, and I think that they are the prohibited favorite in the Western Conference. The Lakers will make a push for it, and I think that people are underrating what they can do. The Spurs could make a push for it. I think the team that everyone is really sleeping on, though, is the Memphis Grizzlies. That team went to the Western Conference to the Western Conference semifinals last year, took the Thunder to 7 games. Zach Randolph played incredibly well, but the thing to remember is that Rudy Gay, the most underrated player in the game, one of the most underrated players in the game, was not able to play in that series. And you add him in, Zach Randolph can have another nice series. Gasol over there, I'd take Marc Gasol over Pau Gasol. That's a dangerous team as well. And then the Thunder, I don't know, I mean, it seems so obvious that the Heat would play the Thunder, but it seems so obvious for the last, or for years before this, that the Cavaliers, back when LeBron James was there, would play the Lakers, and we'd finally get the Kobe versus LeBron in the NBA Finals, and that just never happened. So I don't think that is a lock that we see that in the NBA Finals, but my prediction, as I said, I made the prediction at the beginning of the year, Thunder over Heat. I'm going to stick with that, and we will see what happens. There will be no better place for coverage of the NBA playoffs than the Real Sports Talk. I will see you guys later.